5 things to love about Rugby Union. I've probably already mentioned this in a previous video, but I'm on holiday at the moment. My company, the place I work, has said I got too much annual leave, need to reduce that annual leave balance. So I'm out of Auckland, so I'm pre-recording this video. And it's one that's not time sensitive at all. It's about rugby and things to love about it. Now, I'm not just talking like, there's some sweet tries, big fens, big tackles, that kind of stuff, but I was trying to think kind of a bit deeper. What is it that's like some of the appealing things about rugby? Apart from the fact that I'm a New Zealander and it's probably our best sport by quite some way. Anyway, I've picked 5 things, and you guys can let me know what you think, and other points as well that I certainly haven't mentioned because I limited myself to 5. The first one, I've gone with shapes and sizes. I'm not sure how unique this is to rugby. Like, there's certainly other sports that have a lot of, guys of varying body shapes and sizes, but I feel like rugby encompasses most of them, right? Like, there's spots for the ridiculously tall, the 2 meter, plus, like your Etzebeths and Sneemans and, Jake Ball and all these guys who probably should be playing basketball. There's, Tanaka, who played for Japan, who was significantly shorter, 1.66. Plenty of guys like Faf de Klerk, Aaron Smith in the 1.7s in terms of their height, not overly tall guys. Certainly below average, I would say, in a lot of the countries these guys are from. There's heavy guys, there's, the brutishly strong, there's just such a mix. The fast, the slow, the powerful. It's not like a sport where it's like only one body shape or one body shape particularly dominates because your body shape might help you in some positions and it might be a hindrance in others. Right? There's only a few that are kind of generic. Maybe some of the loose forwards don't have a particular shape or size about them. Like some sports like basketball, generally those guys are all massive. Obviously there's a few exceptions. Rugby league certainly doesn't get, I don't think, like the same size like big forwards that Union gets. They certainly get the quick backs. Swimming tends to do people with like really long limbs, right? There's certain advantages to that. I mean, sumo, which I've been watching a little bit of recently, sumo wrestling certainly has, because there's no weight limits. You could get really big guys up against really little guys, but like boxing, it's all the big guys together, all the lightweight guys together. So rugby kind of puts everyone together, and I think that's a pretty cool thing. Like if your kid comes up to you and says, "I want to play rugby," you can look at them and go, halfback or lock or prop, whatever. There's probably a spot for them somewhere. Even if they're if they're 1.77 or 6'6" meters to play a basketball at professional level, they're going to have to be absolutely amazing. But anyway, that's one point. Next, I'm going to go with team, not individual. I don't want to write individual the whole word because I'm lazy. And again, this is probably not universally true, but I feel like there's a few things in rugby that lend itself being to more of a team thing than an individual thing. And I can kind of appreciate that. In rugby, when you are given a jersey, there's a number on that jersey. That's not your number, right? A lot of sports, and not unique to rugby, but a lot of sports, the number goes with the individual, right? Often if you move teams, you'll get to keep your old number. You're always that number. And in terms of like shirt sales, it's certainly much easier to sell a shirt with a particular player's number on it. So maybe that's one thing that actually hinders rugby in terms of its merchandising. But the player's not bigger than the team. Like when you've done your stint, someone else is going to take that jersey. You don't get to take that jersey with you. Do you know what I mean? And again, it probably varies from country to country. And I've certainly seen some rugby players who think about themselves maybe more than the team. But for the most part, I feel like it's always team first. I wrote it down. I remember watching the NBA in 2016 when LeBron James was back with Cleveland. And I was thinking, it'd be nice if they won because I think, was it Golden State had won like the previous couple of years? And I listened to his post-match and it was like, I came back and I wanted to do this and I did it for Cleveland. And like, the amount of times he said, I did this, I did that. And I think he rectified it a bit in his like not immediate post match, but like the speech for the city. But it was so individualized. And maybe basketball's just a bit like that because they tend to rely more on individuals than a rugby team, which is 15 guys compared to like 5 on the field at one time. But like compare that to Richie McCaw in 2011, where he just talks. What did he talk about? He talked about the pride in the team, the courage of the players. Nothing really about himself, even though he could have gone on about how he was doing it with a broken foot and he wanted to do it for the team and whatnot. But yeah, just a bit of a difference. I thought some sports lend itself well to guys talking themselves up, like UFC is definitely one that benefits from it. And sometimes rugby goes too far that way. The guys are too modest. They get a bit boring. And their pre-match stuff could be a little bit more interesting. But overall, I think that one's pretty fair. Point number 3, I'm just going to go with like the styles. And again, I will say it's not unique to rugby. There's other sports where you can, like football is a good example, where you can play that game in multiple different ways. You can have the tiki-taka of like Barcelona, just pass all day long, and other teams who've just got like Peter Crouch up the front, they just hoof the bloody thing to him, play really direct. Like rugby is like that, and that you can play the game in many different ways. You just think about yourself like Fiji and Georgia. Like you just get totally different feeling in your mind about how the way these teams are going to play. Even to the point where you say, like, think of a Fijian player, you probably think of a flying back. Not necessarily, because they've got some good forwards as well. And, like, you think Georgian, you probably think prop, right? That's just a thing. There's so many different ways to play the game. You can set up a team which is massive, just full of the biggest guys you could find. You can set up a team around a guy who's just absolutely wondrous at kicking penalties and drop goals and can, just keep the scoreboard ticking over. Or you can play a razzle-dazzle style of game just to try and score tries and have horrendous goal kicking, but you figure even if you concede 30, you'll score 40. It's just different styles, eh? That's definitely a thing. A big bruising pack. Think of like the Japanese under Eddie Jones with the fitness compared to like the Springboks under Heineke Meyer, Rassie's Springboks team. I guess, MMA, you got strikers, you got wrestlers. So again, this is far from unique to rugby. But yeah, there's just so many different ways to win the game. So many different ways you can set your team up to play. And that's part of the attraction to kind of see which one comes out on top, right? Which one counters the other. But yeah. Point number 4 is internationals. If I could spell it. Internationals are number 1. And this maybe is a bit biased because I'm from a country which is particularly good at international rugby, but international level rugby is the highest level of rugby. The World Cup is the pinnacle event. There's no team, I think, better than the international teams. I don't think there's a club team in the world, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would beat like the All Blacks or the Springboks or England like at their best, right? That's the whole thing about the internationals is you can field 15 or 23 of the best guys in the world. Whereas like other sports like soccer, football, I think it's probably the other way around. Like the best teams in the world can literally afford the best guys in each position. Whereas the international teams can just pick from who's like eligible for their country. There's just something special about it. The fact that the international level one is just like the be all and end all. Like getting a cap for your country is the ultimate. Now, yeah, I'm not sure how well that is true for, for countries which regularly either don't make the World Cup or go out in the pool stages and whatnot. But yeah, I find there's kind of something special. Other sports like, basketball, like it's so lopsided at international level, it's almost uninteresting because America's just so good. Like Canada with the ice hockey is pretty dominant, right? Like, yeah, that just seems to kind of be a thing that rugby's got the balance and the fact that it is the elite level, I think is pretty cool. Last one, it's a pretty straightforward one, man. That's just a thing with your mates, isn't it? There's nothing, I mean, every sports fan can argue this one. This one is far from unique to rugby, but sitting down with a beer, either at the game, at the pub, at your house, watching the rugby, yelling at the TV, yeah, man, it's just something to love about the game. It doesn't take all day like cricket, so you can still plan other things around the rugby. It's funny actually going to the games. I'm amazed by some of the stuff I see from other fans, like sitting next to me. Like you're miles from the game when you're at the game, but some of them can see, maybe because I got bad eyes. Some people can see some pretty amazing stuff. Like they can see hands in the ruck from the wrong angle and from 200 yards away seemingly. But yeah, it's quite a vibe going to the games. The banter is usually pretty good at rugby. I've never found it to be intimidating. It's always, pretty lighthearted, and oppositions can have a good beer with each other and have a yarn. Like I grew up going to rugby games with my dad, and he would always have a yarn with the opposition, even if they were from Canterbury. But yeah, 5 things to love about rugby. Those are 5 that I've picked. I'm sure there's more. What do you guys reckon? What is it about the game that draws you guys in? Apart from just like I mentioned, like the pure skills of some of the guys. But yeah, those are my points. Anyway, you guys take care. Hopefully this time, whenever I release this video, I'm having a good holiday. Hopefully it's not raining too much. The forecast is pretty bad. But anyway, we will see. You guys take care. And yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.